that way toward the hole. And then let's just take it down right next to it, would you? You've seen that, right? Does that seem like a big difference to you? It looks like a lot of something. That's it. Let's go. Starting with buying this clever machine that was put together by a rogue miner, and ending with the hard job of pulling this huge machine hundreds of miles so that it could help the experienced miner and his team reach their season's gold mining goals. Let's look at what Tony Beets did when he found a gold wash plant that had been left empty during the gold rush. It looks like we'll be watching these gold miners and their crew again as they try to make the most of their time in the Yukon mines. While we all know it won't be easy, people like Parker Schnabel, Rick Ness and Tony Beets need to make the most of the fact that gold is at an all-time high in value. Look at Fred Lewis. He has to make the most important mining choices of his life. Finally, there is Rick Ness, who has to deal with the shocking events that happened while he and his growing group were out looking for gold. Because of this, he has to make choices he never thought he would have to make. Some people like Parker Schnabel and his mine crew are willing to risk everything to find the gold they all want. All of them know that digging isn't fun, so they have to do everything they can to get all the gold they can. This is likely why Tony was so excited when he found something that seemed like it could completely change the way he mined for gold. On the other hand, while the others are dealing with the many problems that come with being the mine boss of their own companies, the famous Tony Beet and his crew are getting ready to get to work in Dawson City. The experienced mine boss was about to go on a chopper ride, which was his favorite thing to do. A helicopter ride is fun for everyone. As we watch Tony and some of his crew get into the helicopter and take off, we can't help but wonder why the longtime miner and his men chose to go on what some might call a joyride. Some people might think they don't deserve such a treat after all. That time Tony and his team were halfway through the season, and had only found about a third of the 3,000 ounces of gold they had set out to find. If fans are worried about what this senior miner might be up to, they can take comfort in the fact that he was only on this helicopter ride because he was on his way to find a way to make up for his team's weaknesses. That's the only thing he can do to take advantage of the market's record-high gold prices. They said they had never been this high before, and they thought it would be silly to pass up this chance to make a lot of money. Tony and his crew decided to follow a lead to a mobile wash plant that might have been left behind in the middle of nowhere in order to make more money. He'll sort of pay attention. He's a bit steep at times. In order to use this chopper, they were looking for this huge machine so they could use it themselves. It's not their fault. Take a look at this 35-ton trommel. It was made by a creative independent gold digger 30 years ago. He was going to build one of the most useful and comfortable wash plants that had ever been thought of. The 40-foot drum that comes with it and the wheels that move it make that clear. Unfortunately, this machine may have been more of an idea than a working version, since the people who used it only used it for about a year before leaving it. Since Tony spent almost $500,000 on this cutting-edge piece of equipment, he had a lot of ideas for how to use it. Old Miner made a brave move. It was clear that Tony was excited about this beautiful wash plant, even though it may have only been used for one mining season. Kevin, did you see that? Are you sure that doesn't look like a pretty weird thing? It looks like something I'd buy. Yeah, it does for sure. The machine was not only huge and intimidating, but it also looked like it was built very well by the person who designed it. Even the wheels that were on it looked like they would last for a long time, because the machine was still easy to move around despite being so big. Also, it's easy to see why Tony couldn't stop praising this machine when he saw it for the first time. The tailings come right out of the back of the machine, which is pretty cool when you see how it works with the pay dirt that is put into it. The machine is easy to move around after it has taken out everything in its path, because it has 4 big wheels on it. After that, it could move on to the next spot and start sluicing through another load of gold. There's no doubt that Tony loves this wash plant, just like a child loves a new toy. He talks to other team members, and it's clear that he doesn't see any reason why the 35-ton trommel couldn't make things better for them. It's easy to see why Tony was willing to take a chance and buy this clever machine. It still looks like it's in good shape. After thinking about this, Tony is eager to move the machine so that they can put it together in time to keep working. It might even be easier to move than a dredge, given how mobile it is meant to be. That's what Tony and the other guy think. Tony said he couldn't resist getting the machine once they realized it could change their luck during an already poor season. This was especially true after the owner had to lower his original price offer from about $1 million. He was happy with the steal he was able to get and thought that the trommel, which he bought for about $400,000, might be the best deal of the season. Let's just hope that this machine can help them reach the last 2/3 of their season goal. Tony quickly gathered 7 men at his camp at Paradise Hill to help him use a lot of heavy machinery to get the trommel on the road. Because of this, he had to stop everything else he was doing while he dragged the sieve back to camp. They might have to pay about $60,000 a day, but if they're lucky, they might be able to get back as soon as the screen is up and running. To make money, you have to spend money. It looked like the guys were ready to finish their task for the day. Mike, Tony's son and the crew's heavy equipment expert, was behind the wheel. Mike told them as they got on the road that getting their things across the boat might be the hardest part of the job. It's a big job when you think about it. At first glance, this might seem like a problem, because of the heavy machines and other gear they have to carry on the boat. However, people would be surprised to learn that the problem is actually with the length of the gear. The boat was only 80 feet long, but the tools were about 85 feet long. They might not let him put the gear on their boat because it could put the people on board in too much danger. If this turns out to be true, they might have to use the closest bridge to the Yukon to finish their task. Unfortunately, even though this seems like a good idea, it might be hard to do since the bridge is almost 200 miles away and facing the wrong way. Who said it was easy to be a miner? Well, they found out when they got to the boat. The captain felt the same way Mike did when she saw the heavy tools they were planning to move on her ferry. Luckily, the tension turned to relief when they learned that the ferry could take the long equipment. They can now start their journey to their goal. Mike and the other guys didn't waste any time getting on the road after taking the boat across the river. They crossed the top of the World Highway on their way to Moose Creek. People think that this highway is one of the most northern in the world. Do you want to do that at your quiz nights? Tony and his crew finally got together on the road that went to Moose Creek so they could start moving Tony's new favorite toy back to Paradise Hill, which was more than 100 miles away, of course. It's impossible for them not to do this, especially when they knew they were going to have a bad season. They need to finish this job quickly if they want to get their season going. But Tony tells the team to be careful as they do their job, even though they need to get it done quickly. After all, everything that's worth doing is also worth doing well. After giving them a pep talk, Tony and his team got right to work doing everything they could to get their huge new stress to the right place. As the other guys did what Tony did, all you could hear were the loud noises of tools and dirt being crushed. As soon as possible, Mike and the other guys got to where the screen was. Now they were going to work moving that huge machine out of the way. The task wasn't going to be simple, especially since Tony had only 3 days to get the machine back to base. He has a lot of people and machines there. They must be able to complete this task. If they were going to be successful at that job, it looks like Tony's plan might help them do it. Tony thought that taking the machine apart was the first thing they needed to do if they were going to be successful. To begin, they were going to take the machine away. After that, they were going to separate the filter box. Once this was done, they would move on to the hopper, and then the huge drum that Tony was so excited about when he saw this huge trommel. We'll get on the hydraulic after you take out the hopper. No, not that person. So as you might expect, the guys set about taking apart the conveyor belt first as planned. As the guys followed Tony's instructions, this seemed to go off without a hitch. We hope that all of this work won't go to waste. By the time they were done with the machine, Tony thought it might be time to end the day on a good note. The guys worked hard today, so they deserve more than just a cold beer and a good meal to end the day on a high note. A good leader made the right choice. The team wasn't going to waste their boss's kindness, so they went back to the roadhead and set up a bunkhouse for a place to sleep. The rest of them camped in their cars. Tony was sure that his truck would be the perfect place to sleep. This sneaky old miner looks like he can still stick it out with the best of them, even though he's getting on in years. He could even put his shoes in the truck. It looks like this spot is better than the Ritz. He and the other guys still needed to get a good night's sleep so they could start working early the next morning. Tony and his team got right back to work in the morning. It didn't matter that they were 160 miles below the Arctic Circle. The important thing was that they quickly got this huge machine back to Paradise Hill so they could get to work. It was already late in the season, so they didn't have enough time. They might get stuck inside if they waste any more time. If you think this means Tony and the rest of the crew will be in the middle of nature's most beautiful weather, you would be wrong. It actually means they have to wait until next year to move their great new machine. That's not going to happen. That could mean they were ready to leave their machine to take more damage from the rust and dampness that could happen from the snow. It could also mean that they were ready to lose their 3,000-ounce gold goal for the season. That can't happen, for sure. Tony and the other guys got to work after being helped by the thought of what they might lose if they didn't reach their goals. That's how Cody made sure he cut the sluice box off right. After this was done, Mike was able to safely lift the sluice box away with his big tools. Now it was time to move the 40-foot 20-ton drum so that the show could go on the road. Boy, I want to work as a miner, so that this can happen. Tony is going to pull back the hydraulic support and let the trommel rest on its wheels. This would help the team lift the drum, which would then let them pull the frame out from under it. Our guess is that these guys were only meant to mine gold. In any case, it was clear that this job would not be easy when they saw that a steel plate had been attached to one of the machine's legs. To keep the frame up, this was done. In turn, this will lower some of the hydraulics pressure. It looked like they were going to have to finish this if they wanted to move forward with it. They didn't have a hard time making this choice, and soon the team started cutting this off. They had to be careful not to hurt themselves or their tools, but that's just how their job was. Soon they were reminded of how dangerous their job was when Jordan Eagles saw his life flash before his eyes as the machine reacted to losing its support. Lucky for them, everything turned out fine, so Tony in his brash way helped the team laugh about it and get back to work. It was clear that Tony was always eager to get his boys and girls moving so that they could get out of there, since they had already been moving for 2 days. As I watched, I was amazed at how well the experienced mine boss could tell his workers what to do to finish the job. They were lucky to have some of the best machines and most skilled workers in the game. Tony was excited to see that the next part of the job was close at hand after the machine was taken apart. It looked like they were going to go back to Paradise Hill as soon as they were ready, and if not, that's okay too. I have no reason to risk and go. She looks like a goat to me. I agree with you. Leave this place now. But they had to move the drum and other parts of the trommel from the road to the highway in order to do this. To do this, they made parts out of the machine's parts, so they could put them on chains that would keep them in place while they were being moved. It was important that they finish this within 3 hours so that they wouldn't have to do it as the sun went down. The good news is that everything went off without a hitch, and they were on their way soon enough. But they had to be careful not to get too excited, because if they spent too much or hit any rocks or pebbles on the road, they could have a terrible accident. In this case though, slow and steady might win the game. One side of Mike's truck went up in the air as they drove, which shows how dangerous this is. He should take his time, especially since he still had to go through miles and miles of curves to get back home. It was bad that Mike would have trouble when they came across a slick road. He quickly found that he needed help from the rest of the team because his tires were spinning in the mud on the road. With their heavy tools, they were able to pull him out of the mess and find that he was already on his way to make this trip again. People who work together always get things done. Once they got past that problem, Mike and the rest of the team were able to get the truck out of Moose Creek in the 3 days they said they would. Good job. The trommel had to be put on a truck so they could take it to Paradise Hill and use it to change their luck for the rest of the season. You have to wonder how they were able to do this before the weather changed everything. The fact that they were able to finish it before it rained or snowed made Tony very happy. So they were able to take this machine home without any problems, now that the hardest part was over. For the right reasons, Tony thought that they would not let rain or snow stop them the next day. Even if it did happen. He told them he appreciated their hard work so far, and urged them to give it their all on the last part of this, admittedly, difficult trip to Moose Creek. This is the life of a mine boss and his team who work hard. Wow, that's really cool.
right? So they could meet their goal for the season, the team had to drag this huge machine hundreds of miles away from their mines, which was a difficult job. We hoped that this would help them get about 2,000 ounces of gold before the season ends, so even if we don't think about how hard it was to make such a long trip, we still think about how much of a risk it was. Every day that they tried to get this machine to their base, they lost about $60,000. We should hope that this risk paid off, as these guys do everything they can to make their gold rush work. Everything from buying this clever machine that was put together by a rogue miner to the hard work of pulling this huge machine hundreds of miles so that it could help the experienced miner and his team reach their season's gold mining goals. It makes me very interested to see what kinds of values are in this drop. Some of those are what I want to take a look at. This could get lucky. In the most recent episode of Gold Rush, famous gold miner Tony Beats went back to his old profitable claim near Paradise Hill to remember the good times. There are 30 years worth of untold stories ready to be found. Tony's expedition promises exciting adventures that will either bring long-sought riches or unexpected problems. Tony uses the 460 excavator, a heavy-duty machine made for large-scale mining activities, because he knows how important it is to have multiple excavation sites. The 460 excavator is built to last and can dig deep. It moves a lot of dirt and rock quickly and easily, which is important for Tony's big job near Paradise Hill. When Tony thinks about Paradise Hill's past, he remembers the mining work they did 30 years ago. They had to get rid of the dirt they had dug up, so they put the overburden, the layer that covers possible gold and silver-rich pay dirt on a certain part of the hill. This caused 50,000 yards of waste to build up, which is the same as filling 15 Olympic-sized swimming pools, and shows how long they looked for minerals. I've pretty much made up my mind. That could be a nice little piece, if we strip and slush it. It's kind of like a piggy bank I forgot about 30 years ago. Tony now has to reshape the mountain in order to get to the rich pay dirt hidden inside. He is thinking about what he has done in the past, and making plans to get to the right depth. Even though there are problems, Tony is still positive. He is encouraged by the fact that gold prices are high and fuel costs are low, which are both good for making money. While Tony and his team keep digging, they want to find the untouched virgin ground with lighter colored gravels that are full of gold that are below the top layer of dirt. Being careful is something Tony does because he has learned over the years to look at every possible finding with a balanced view. Tony looks at the scenery with both knowledge and intuition, which lets him tell if the ground that has been dug up is new or not. We're going to get gravel. It looks good, but that doesn't always mean that the ground has a slope. His sharp eye finds white gravel among the useless brown gravel, which means there is gold there and a good pay streak is coming. Finding out how long it is, anywhere from 10 to 40 feet, needs a measured approach, even though there are some unknowns. Even though 50,000 yards of extra weight need to be removed, Tony is still sure that the pay streak is worth it. He thinks that this dig is like finding $1 million piggy bank that you forgot about. Tony thinks about their past mining activities, while inviting his daughter Monica to Paradise Hill. He admits that he doesn't know how much work they did in the past. Tony is very good at judging scenery, so he can tell the difference between digging up land that has gold in it, and digging up land that doesn't have any gold. As the week goes on, Tony and his team make amazing progress in getting the piggy bank cut. The Beats family gets together to talk about their successes and keep track of how much gold they've taken out. Monica talks about the hard work that goes into having 4 rock trucks sent out around the clock, which shows how big their operations are. Tony, who is in charge of the job, wants to get at least 85 ounces to help pay for the digging. After carefully weighing each gold piece, the final total is higher than expected, which makes the team very happy because they beat their goal. It did cost some money to keep a D10 there for a few days though. It does add up, even though gas is low right now. I understand. Dude, sometimes you gotta take a chance. I'm going to take a chance on it. The gold taken out of the piggy bank cut is worth more than $185,000, which is a big amount of money by any standard. Even though Tony had hoped for a bigger haul, he agrees that the result was pretty good, knowing that digging always has risks and unknowns. When Tony thinks about the findings, he stresses that taking calculated risks is often necessary to be successful in mining, as in any other field. Even though there were problems, he is happy with the result, and says he is okay with the risks that come with working in mining. He says that the operation was successful because of how dedicated and hard-working his team was. This shows how important it is to be patient when things go wrong. The Beets family's mining activities at Paradise Hill show how determined and persistent they were in reaching their goals. Even though they ran into problems, they overcame them by working together and not giving up. In the end, they made money. As the mining season goes on, Tony Beets looks at how things are going at their business, and notes that so far things are looking good. Gold rates are between $1,700 and $1,800 an ounce, which gives Tony a big chance to make money. He says that there is enough evidence to show that they can process cheaply at these prices. Even though the season got off to a late start, Tony is sure they can make up for it and take advantage of the good market conditions. Tony is more sure of himself now that the giant cut worked, which he thinks could bring in up to 3,000 ounces of gold. Mike Beets, his son, makes sure that the sluice machine works at full capacity, getting 350 yards of pay dirt ready every hour. The sluice plant, which is important for mining, uses a sluice box to easily separate gold from silt. This shows how committed they are to increasing productivity. Do you see that? It's full of it. Take a look, that has a lot of gold in it. It's actually pretty cool. Oh, you mean excited? Tony also looks into other possible sources of quick profits on Paradise Hill, knowing how important they are for making the most money and hitting seasonal goals. Even though they got 100 ounces of gold from the piggy bank cut, Tony knows they need more to meet their yearly goals. They got a good amount from the hunker cut, but it wasn't enough to meet their needs. Tony takes a strategic approach by looking into the old-timers' tailings, which are the leftovers from mining operations in the area that were left by miners who worked there before him. Tony has been interested in these tailings for a while, and thinks that the current high gold prices are a good time to learn more about them and use them. The Beets family finds something very important on Paradise Hill, a big pile of gold-rich tailings that other miners left behind. Unlike other deposits, these tailings are easy to get to because they are on the top and don't need any overburden to be removed. Tony is thrilled about the find and says that all that needs to be done is to collect the tailings and run them through the sluice plant. Since the tailings have already been sluiced, they are free of clay and other impurities, which makes them easier to handle. Because of the good chances of making money from the high gold price and low processing costs, Tony thinks that processing these dumps will bring in a lot more money, making their already profitable season even better. Monica is in charge of how the ashes are processed, putting 100 yards of pay dirt into the kiwi plant every hour to be treated, and making sure that the material flows smoothly down the sluice. At the same time, Desiree, the new loader operator, works hard to clear the fine tailings from the end of the sluice run. This makes sure that the gold is completely separated from the trash. That's why I believe it's worth a try. What do you guys think? Let's take a look and see what's inside. Okay, fine. We might use a small sieve to do some tests. Yes, after that we'll just go from there. Monica talks about the old-timer cut's possibilities, and is hopeful that adding more pumps will increase productivity, even though only the trommel is working right now. But things go wrong at the mine plant when Desiree hits something, breaking equipment and forcing the plant to shut down. For example, Tony Beets points out how bad the situation is by saying that the mill loses almost $2,000 every hour it is not in use. Kevin Beets, an important member of the Beets family who is known for being good with machines, quickly comes to look at the damage and figure out what's wrong. Kevin does a full investigation and finds that the problem is caused by the operator accidentally connecting the cable to the bucket while it was moving. This pulled a beam forward and twisted the run. Kevin thinks that the problem can be fixed by straightening the bent bar and changing the position on the run. Precise work and expert know-how are needed. Even though the repairs took longer than planned and shut down the facility for 8 hours, the crew finally gets back to work once the repairs are done. Monica is very excited about the possibility of the old-timer cut. She remembers their first sluicing efforts before the technical problem, and can't wait to see the results, now that the problem has been fixed. The team is now focusing on increasing output, and making up for lost time, now that the plant is back up and running. Kevin is just as excited as Monica is, and he's interested in what the old-timer cut will reveal, and the chance of finding treasures that have been missed. He agrees that the small trommel has worked well in the past, and is still hopeful about getting back a lot of gold. Smaller particles fall through the holes in the trommel drum as it spins, stirring up the material inside. Larger particles are caught and moved to the end of the trommel, showing how the processing works. This method works well to separate gold from other things around it. Now that the plant is back up and running, the team works hard to process the material from the old-timer cut, looking closely at each scoop of dirt to separate the gold from the other stuff that can't be used. Even though the job is very detailed and requires a lot of work, the crew is still determined to get as much gold as possible. For the rest of the day, the plant works without any more technical problems. The Beats family gets together on Paradise Hill to talk about Tony's search for wealth in the old-timer's trash. They weigh the gold that was found by running pay dirt through Mike's trommel in the giant cut before going into the results. Tony wants to lose 3,000 ounces this season, which is about 177 ounces a week, but they don't get enough. They only get 160.43 ounces, which is worth $287 an ounce. Moving on to the old guy's tailings, Monica talks about the problems they had, such as a shutdown and loader problems. They were able to keep the plant running for 4 hours despite some problems. Tony usually wants to get 1 ounce of gold for every 100 yards, but he only thinks he can get half that much with these dregs. Tony says he'll be happy with 1 or 2 ounces from the 400 yards, but the result is better than he expected. They find a total of 4.22 ounces of gold worth $7,400 after weighing the gold that was taken from the tailings. The results confirm Tony's thoughts about the potential of the old-timers' tailings, and the family is happy with them, seeing them as a success. To say it again, our dad. Yeah. What's wrong with that then? Not at all. Every day if you do that, the old girl still makes things. Of course. For the Beats family, the success of the old-timers' tailings is an inspiration that drives them to look for more options in the area. They say they are happy with the result, and plan to keep doing what they were doing in the area. But the next day at Paradise Hill, when they go to check out the damage to their trommel, they have a big setback. To fully see how bad the damage is, Tony's team has to take out the trommel, which is a very hard job. Tony tells Mike to move the line out of the way, and then lift the 40-ton barrel after raising the trommel. Kevin agrees that taking the trommel apart and moving it would be hard because it hasn't been moved in over 10 years. He is still hoping that once the barrel is down, they will be able to see how badly damaged it is, and decide if it can be fixed. The first thing they need to do is safely move the barrel from where it is now, which Mike does by being careful. Kevin finds some troubling problems with the trommel when he looks at it more closely. 80% of the wedges are broken, and there are cracks in the rings. One of the rings is almost ready to break off. He makes it clear that the trommel can't be used as it is, because a piece has been snapped off, making it useless. Tony and his team are sad about the news because the trommel is an important piece of equipment for their mining business. Without it, they would not be able to handle pay dirt and get gold as easily. Tony is well aware of how bad the problem is, and knows that fixing or replacing the trommel will take a lot of time, work and money. We'll get to work on the hydraulics after we take out the hopper. No, someone else did a better job. They really messed that up.